Okay, yeah, my name's Elena. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 22nd. So this is nerve-wracking. So I guess I'm just going to start. All right, so I was, so to start from the beginning, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, to a single mother. So I guess just her story kind of plays into mine and what happened. So she had been married and was trying to have kids with her husband. After 5 miscarriages, they told her she was never going to be able to have kids. So woke up one morning and her husband had left a note and he was gone. So she went down a pretty dark spiral. And then I showed up somehow. Stubborn from the get-go, I guess. So I was kind of born into a slew of abandonment issues from pretty early on. She always told me that I was her miracle and saved her life. So, I mean, there was never any lack of knowing that I was loved by her. But I guess when I was younger, since she had to work all the time, I stayed with family a lot. So I was with my grandparents very often, my aunts. So I didn't really know I was different until I started school, I guess. So I was a happy kid until school started. My mom met my first stepdad when I was 4. He got a job offer down here, so we decided to move. He was very emotionally unavailable, but to me, especially after I got into school and started making friends and seeing their families, like I wanted him to be my dad, so I called him my dad. But that didn't really work out very long. When I was 8, they ended up splitting up. And I remember the day that he left, and I asked him, like, will you still be my dad? And are we going to continue to have a relationship? And he said yes, of course, and then he never spoke to me ever again. And the worst part about it was I had the most immaculate collection of VHSs of Disney videos, and he took them all for his real children. So anyway, so at that point it was just me and my mom again, and we were down here. We didn't really have any family down here, so I ended up staying at friends' houses a lot during until she got off of work. And again, just kind of felt like an outsider, felt different, sitting at my best friend's dinner table with her family. And I just felt like I didn't have one. My mom was there as much as she could be, and I guess I should say, she did the best she could. So, anyways, at the age of 10, my mom met another guy, and at first I was super resistant because at this point now, I realized I was never going to know who my real dad was, and then I had the first stepdad who left, and I just was very hesitant to bring another father figure into my life. Anyway, so they ended up staying together. He's not a nice man. Pretty much every type of abuse possible happened during that time. So, from the ages of 10 to 12, I had sexual abuse happen. Thankfully, that stopped when his daughter came to live with us. So at that point, I didn't really know how to deal with life. I didn't know how to accept what had happened. I didn't even know what happened. The message was, if you can't tell your mom because she won't love you anymore. And I had already gone through all of these parental figures in my life not loving me, so I didn't, that terrified me. So anyway, I never told her. So after my stepsister came to live with us, that's when more of the emotional and physical abuse really started. She had, lived with him when she was younger, and I think it just kind of kicked off this chaos. Whenever she was one to really talk, like, I never talked back. I was very much like, whatever you told me I was going to do. Adults always were right. But when she came, she was very defiant. She talked back to him all the time. So that started to kind of rub off on me. And whenever we talked back, it was, he would go off the deep end and tell us that we were worthless. We wouldn't amount to anything, but call us out of our name and then not speak to us for like 4 weeks. So it was rough. It was not a good time. And at this point, like, I just was trying to survive. And I think my mom I think she was broken too, and she was also just trying to survive. So when I was 15, I started to get in with the cool crowd at school, and I got invited to my first party at the age of 15. And that is when I took my first drink. And they were awful. They gave me Jose Cuervo as my first drink. And I chased it down with blue Gatorade. What a time. Awful. Blacked out that night, but I remember just like, I felt like I could finally fit in. Like, I was finally extroverted. I finally could talk to people. And I didn't feel different. And I liked that a lot. I blacked out that night. My quote-unquote friends put me to bed. And then I came to one of them, like, on top of me. Thankfully, nothing happened. Someone else I started screaming and stuff, whatever. Someone came in, and they were able to pull him off. I was 15. So all of this has happened 15 years old. After that, I really just went into a downward spiral with alcohol. Like, now that I knew what it was, I drank whenever I could. We had older friends, so it was easy to get every weekend, really. Then one of my friends, his parents owned a restaurant, so he was able to get bottles. I had a bottle in my closet, and would pretty much drink like every night. The next big event, 17 was a really rough year. That year, I guess I didn't say this, but my grandparents played a really big role, especially when I was growing up. I would go and see them twice a year, every year, without fail. So my grandfather was, as all of these other father figures were failing, he was the one that was always constant, and I was really close to him. And he passed away when I was 17, so I was devastated by that. So I was on top of everything else, I was the grief took me down a spiral. And then that same year, I was dating someone, and I had, my parents, my mom and stepdad, were never home during the day. They both worked, and I had an early release day, so I invited this guy over. We were watching movies. My stepdad came home early, surprise, surprise, and he lost his shit. And he started screaming and basically started punching me and beating me to a pulp. So he told me to get out. So me and my boyfriend at the time drove me to my mom's job, and I talked to her, and I was like, I'm not going back to that house. And she thought that was the best idea as well. And I stayed with a family friend for a month, and I guess I felt like I was betrayed. I guess I felt I just didn't feel safe anywhere. And then my stepsister left that year as well because she was tired of living in that house. It was an awful place to be. So, I ended up, my mom made her choice that she was going to stay with him, so whatever. At the age of 18, I left. I went to UGA, and if I was already drinking a lot in high school, I really went off the rails in Athens. I had a fake ID. I was going out every night. Somehow I still managed to maintain my Hope Scholarship all 4 years, though. So I don't know. Miracles do happen. I would I would black out on a regular basis, wake up in places I didn't know how I got there. But I thought it was normal. I saw everyone else, and I was like, oh, it's just like everyone does this. It's just party culture. It was not normal, I guess. So, and I was also like one of those people, like if you invited me to do something, if it didn't involve drinking, I didn't want to do it. I really was just kind of like a depressed sack of skin until I started drinking. That was really the only time that I felt like I was having a good time. And it would just like numb everything else out. So at the age of 20, I got my first DUI. And it wasn't even a good story. I had gone downtown Athens, and I knew the next day was a game day, and I left my car in that parking garage, and they told me if it's not gone by 5 a.m. you're going to get booted, and I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. So I left my car there. I actually Ubered home like a responsible young adult, and then I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was like, oh, I can go get my car and not have it booted. And I guess I was still drunk, so didn't work out in my favor. I hit a curb and the tire blew out. So, and then GSP pulled up, and I was in my pajamas, and I was like, how would I be drinking in my pajamas? So, I don't know. Anyway, he arrested me, and I went to the Athens Finest. And after that, I think I was everyone around me, as far as and then a lovely church group in Athens took it upon themselves to mail my mugshot to my parents. So my mom called me and was like, did you get a DUI? And I was like, yes. So after that, she told me she was worried about me, and I was just like, I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not a big deal. We got a lawyer, and right before I was going to go to court for that, I was like, I should have a last hurrah before I go on probation. And that last hurrah ended up in a public intoxication arrest because I passed out on a curb. So super classy stuff. So after that, that got added on to that charge, and then I got suspended from the University of Georgia for a semester. I did not want to come home, so I ended up staying with this guy that I was dating at the time. It was a lot of drinking every day. He was going to KSU at the time, so it was still the same thing. It's just a bunch of, and I didn't have anything to do except work part-time, so I had all that extra time to drink. Thought it was great. It was really just drowning myself to not feel anything. During that time, we got in a fight, and I grabbed a knife and tried to allegedly slip. I mean, it was very surface level. It was more so a cry for attention, I guess. But that's kind of when my drinking was never, I guess, really for a good time. But at this point in my life, in my early 20s, it really took the darker turn, where it was just really misery. So anyway, I ended up going back to UGA. I graduated. After that, I moved back to Kennesaw. Was still living with that guy. When I was 24, we broke up. And then I went on a full spiral again, and then I got my second DUI when I was 25. And at that point, they did, as part of my consequences, sent me to AA, and I sat in a little room with a bunch of, no offense, older men, and I was like, this is not for me. I'm not like these people. I am literally 25 years old. Why am I here? But then, like, through the classes and stuff that I was taking, I was like, maybe I do have a problem. But then I was like, no, I don't. Everything's fine. And at that point, I was living on my own and kind of just, partying took precedent over anything. And I guess one of my bad drunks was I went out with my best friend, and I was supposed to be her wingman. Like, I had full knowledge that she was going to try to hook up with this guy. We got to his apartment, and she went to go do her thing or whatever. But there were a bunch of other guys there that I was not expecting, and so I got super angry. I didn't want to be in a room in that situation. So when she came out, I punched her. Not a good idea. And she was like, okay, well, I'm going to take you home now. So we get in the car, and then we're going down South Cobb Drive, and I decide to open the car door and roll out of the car while it's moving. Not a good idea either. Don't recommend it. And then so she was not happy with me. And then we got to my apartment in Kennesaw, and I discovered that I left the keys at the dude's house. So anyway, at that point she was like, F you, figure it out, girl. And she left. And she didn't talk to me for a month, and I acted like a psycho ex-boyfriend, sending her flowers and notes and stuff, like, please forgive me, I don't know. And I didn't know who that was. Like, normally when I got drunk, I felt happy. That was the first time that I had actually gotten violent, and I didn't really recognize myself. But I never thought to maybe stop drinking. That was never a thought that crossed my mind. So around she did end up forgiving me. She also plays a part in my amends after. But anyway, so before I got to that part, I remember I was on a vacation dating this guy, and I was on vacation, so I thought vacation was you drink from the time you get up to the time you go to sleep or pass out. And he had the audacity to ask me, is there anything you want to do that doesn't involve drinking? And I was like, I'm on vacation. What do you mean? And I was so offended. And then when we got back, I broke up with him. But I think that was also like my first, outside thought of someone that was like, that I considered close to me, like calling me out on the drinking. Because up until then, I think I was good at living like this double life. And I had the legal trouble, but I still, I bought my first house at 25. I had a car. I had a job. I had all these things. I hadn't, besides, getting arrested once or twice, I had everything else. At this point, I'm in my later 20s. Another thing that I did to my best friend is I decided to date her brother. That was not a good idea either. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. And I guess this was the part where my denial really upped the ante, because he was one of us, or is one of us, and his disease was just more advanced than mine. He was drinking from the time he got up to the time he passed out, every single day. And so I was like, how could I have I'm not that. I only drink on the weekend. Which was also not true. But, and one night, before we broke up, he also started taking sleeping pills, while he was drinking. And he, one night he got super violent. He basically threw my dog, and, I was standing in front of a door, and he punched right above my head. And I was like, okay, well, we're over now. So I went over, we broke up, went through all of those motions, ended up with a third DUI when I was 30. So it's, Yeah, I don't know. I go through breakups and then I get DUIs, I guess. So, third DUI, and this is 2020, so COVID's happening as well. And then the other thing that happened, which is more so just a funny story, but I did an ancestry DNA test, and I ended up matching with my first cousin on my biological father's side. And I don't know if you've ever done those, but you can message people, and that cousin messaged me, and he was like, excuse me, who are you? And I was like 2 bottles of wine in, and I was like, I have time today. I'm going to let you know who I am. And told him. And then we ended up, after, like, over the course of a few weeks, like, talking, and then he offered to basically tell my biological father that he knew about me and so that we could connect. Did that, and that was also just, like, a whole slew of emotions. He ended up apologizing, and I guess to me I was just kind of like, this is not real because the only reason you're talking to me is because I did this whole thing. Otherwise, like, you never tried to find me, you never tried to talk to me, and you very well much knew that I existed. So it took me a while to kind of get through that. Dang, we still have so much time. Oh my God. Yeah, what it's like now. So, okay, so I'm 30, or I'm not 30 now. I'm 34 now, but, so I got the third DUI. 2023 comes along. After I got that third DUI, I was like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. But again, anything but getting sober. I saw a psychiatrist, went to therapy, like literally everything but give up drinking. So I went to court, and they told me you can go to DUI court or you can go to jail for 90 days. And after my experience in Fulton County, when I got my second arrest, which I didn't even talk about that, but yeah, that experience was awful. Met like murderers, and someone tried to make me their bitch while I was in jail. So I did not want to go through that. So I decided to go through DUI court, and I had never, and they told me the rules and stuff, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to actually have to get sober since I get drug tested randomly every week. And I had never, like, every other time that I was on probation or whatever, I was always able to work the system. And I never stopped drinking. So finally in 2023, started DUI court and came here for my first AA meeting that was required as part of DUI court, and it was a Saturday, and it was a beginner's meeting, and I, like, as soon as I got out of my car, I just felt like I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to live this way. I don't know why. Like, I was just miserable all the time, and like I didn't have enough spunk to, like, off myself, but I was really hoping that one day I would just, like, not wake up. So anyway, Saturday, walk into the beginner's meeting, and I guess I was just given that gift of desperation where I didn't want to be miserable anymore. So I decided to actually listen. I think I cried pretty much the entirety of that first meeting. And then, and Josie was sharing, and got her to sign my paper, and then I'm very, like, very introverted and very shy, so once I talk to one person, like, that's it, I'm good. So I clung on to her. And I kept coming back here, and finally asked her to be my sponsor. And we started going through the steps. And when it came to, like, even that first step, I remember, like, I had been in AA rooms before, but one, I had never spoken. And I had never had the thought of, like, I'm an alcoholic. And I remember the first time I shared, in the beginner's meeting, and I had to say, my name is Elena and I'm an alcoholic, and it was just like shocking to the system. But it was also like relieving in a way to finally just be able to accept my reality, and say that, this is where I'm at, and I can't continue to live like this, and I need help. So yeah, that first step was big for me, and then the second big step was step 4, of course. It was nerve-wracking, but it was also just, I had always told people bits and pieces of my life. I had never told any one person everything. So sorry for unloading that on you. But to me, it was relieving. It's like, oh, wow, someone can finally know how awful I am and still talk to me. Awesome. And then for the amends, I'm still working through a lot of that right now. But, I mean, one of my big ones was to my best friend, even though, like, we had already kind of worked it out along the way, and I had asked her for forgiveness. I was able to just, like, sit down with her and really just tell her how sorry I was for everything that I had put her through. Because, I mean, the whole, like, me rolling out of the car on South Cobb Drive was not great, but me dating her brother was really impactful. There was a lot of hurt that her and her brother already had, so she kind of felt really betrayed by that. So I was able to make amends to her, and now I'm trying to be a living amends, I guess, through my actions every day and just showing up and being present. And I think for the first time in a very long time, I have feelings, which is overwhelming a lot of the time because I numbed them for so long. So, but it's nice being able to actually feel things and talk about things. Not good at talking about things still, but I'm getting there. And then I guess just also working on things with my mom. There's a lot of hurt there on both sides. So it's a work in progress. But yeah, as far as just like where I'm at now, still in DUI court, but it was really, I think, like, it was a gift from God, honestly, because there were a lot of other things that happened over the course of the past year, which I know a lot of other people have gone through worse things, but for me it was my dog. I had to put my dog down after she got cancer for the 3rd time, like back in January, and like I don't have kids, I don't have a spouse or whatever, so to me my dogs are my life, so that broke me. And if I had been drinking still, I'm convinced that I would have just drank myself to death. If it weren't for this program, I'm pretty sure, I would have gotten to the point where I would have drank myself to death, or to a point where I would have killed myself while I was drunk, because that's just the road that I was going down. I just didn't want to be here anymore. But now, all of you weirdos forced me to be here and forced me to go out and do things. You forced me to tell my story. But it's nice, and I'm thankful. And I know we still have 15 minutes, but I don't know what else to say. So, yeah.